Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Eider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polar Craft Boats, Primal Outdoors, Security Credit Union, Offshore Tackle, Garber Chevrolet, Rapid River Knife Works, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to another edition of the Outdoor Magazine radio show here on the Outdoor Magazine radio network on more than 30 radio stations across the great state of Michigan, and so glad to have you along with us on what is arguably the most wonderful time of year. As you are hearing this show this weekend, it is officially fall. Woo woo. What a great time of year this is. Even if you don't like to hunt or fish, you can say that fall is probably the best season of the year. Temperatures are down, humidity's down, the leaves are changing, and it is absolutely beautiful. The only problem with fall is it doesn't last long enough. It's followed by that season that the season that shall not be named, the one that brings the cold and the white stuff. And I will admit, the older I get, the less I like that season. I know. I'm getting to be weak in my old age, and I'm not going to argue with that. But I do love the fall. Let's see. So what's going on right now? I have not resighted my crossbow in since the strings and cable were replaced. I suspect it's pretty close. I need to do that here in the next few days to be ready for the upcoming season. And if you haven't been shooting, you should be. I suspect, though, if you're a bow hunter, you have been out there. I have been out, though, getting ready for the bow season. I went out and replaced some batteries in some trail cameras on a piece of leased property that we have. I never thought that I would be blessed to have a piece of leased property, but a few years ago, we kind of fell into this, and Gene and Pam have opened up their beautiful piece of property about a half hour from my house. I don't even know how we got access to it, but we did, and now we lease this property, and they have allowed us to put in some food plots, to put in some trail cameras. It's almost like I'm a real deer hunter here and now, right? Because unless you have trail cameras and unless you have food plots, you're not a real deer hunter these days, it seems. Unless you have a hit list, unless you have trail camera pictures and you've named the deer, and unless you allow the deer, unless you pass the deer for a few years ahead of time and allow it to become mature, you're not a deer hunter anymore, are you? And it's those factors that pushed me away from deer hunting for several years. I just couldn't buy into it. And I still don't buy into it, I'll be honest with you. I think the hunting experience is very personal and it's very private. And it should be hunt your hunt is the slogan I like to use. Hunt your hunt. If your hunt involves hunting a 140-inch, 10-point mature whitetail that you've named and you have trail camera pictures of and you've passed in previous years and you've decided that he is indeed mature, God bless you. Have at it. Go for it. But if your hunt means you have a tag in your pocket, your hunting opportunities are limited, you're on state land, and a 1.5-year-old forkhorn walks in front of you, and you look at that animal and say, man, is he going to taste good? God bless you as well. Please don't fall into the deer hunting hype that is outdoor television today. or YouTube videos today. If you don't have access to 1,000 acres in Missouri that nobody else hunts but you, you might want to change your expectations. Your expectations might not be what you see on outdoor television or on some of the big YouTube channels. That's okay. It's your hunt. It is your experience. It is your harvest. It is your tag. Hunt your hunt. As long as you're hunting legally, I don't care what you do. The morals and ethics of hunting are a very, very personal experience. I can't tell you what your hunting morals or ethics should be. I can tell you what the law is, and I would ask you to abide by that. But beyond that, I don't care what you do, and I'm not going to judge you, and I'm not going to shame you, and I'm not going to say you should have let it go. You know, be like Elsa, let it go. No, I'm not going to say that. Charlie just looked at me over his shoulder. Hunt your hunt. Take the animal that you want. Be proud of it. I will say, however, that if it's an animal that you are somehow or for some reason going to apologize for after the fact, then hold off. Don't let that arrow go. You should never apologize for a harvest. Doe, small buck, big buck, I don't care. If you have made the decision that if you harvest that animal, you will be proud of it and it'll feed your family, then go for it. But don't ever apologize. Don't ever say, well, he's not my biggest. Don't ever do that. There's no reason for that. So anyway, I got off track. So I was out, and we do have, so on this lease property that we're so blessed to have, we put up trail cameras. And I will tell you right now, I'm a casual deer hunter. I am not hardcore at all anymore. I deer hunt because it's part of the Michigan outdoor experience. And because my grandpa deer hunted, and because my dad deer hunted, and because my son deer hunts, and because my grandkids deer hunt, I want a deer hunt to be part of that experience as well. Beyond that, I'd rather bear hunt. I'd rather walleye fish. But deer hunting season is here, and I'm going to be a part of it. So we have these trail cameras out, and these cellular trail cameras are crazy these days, aren't they? Do they make it easier? I don't know if they make it easier. Do they provide more information? Absolutely. When you've got a cellular trail camera out in the woods or on a food plot or whatever, you can see the deer that are coming and going. You can see where they're traveling, when they're traveling, and if you've got a nice buck in the area, you can see him as well. Does that make it unfair? I don't think so. Does it provide valuable information? Absolutely. So I changed the batteries on the trail cameras. I hung a couple of new trail cameras, and while I was out there, I did a recon of the food plots that we put in just before Labor Day. Some of them are looking pretty good. A couple of them could use some help. I did find, though, in my casual deer hunting way, I found it very valuable that when you are wandering through your hunting woods, changing the batteries on your trail camera, it's best to do it with a cigar in your mouth. You took your human scent and the scent of a cigar into your hunting property? Yes, I did. And I was darn glad that I did because the mosquitoes ate me alive. I didn't even think to take a thermosol with me. Cigars and mosquitoes don't match. They don't like each other. So anyway, that was fun. So we're getting ready there. What else is going on? Bear season is open. I do not have a tag this year. I will next year, hopefully. And if not, I will. Either way, I'm going to Ontario to hunt with Ron St. Louis of Northern Wilderness Bear Outfitters. No doubt about that. I'll be back. Goose season's open. Fall turkey season's open. I have a fall turkey tag in my pocket. I am not going to actively hunt fall turkeys, but while I'm out there, sitting in that Wraith 270 see-through ground blind from Primal or in one of their tree stands, if a longbeard walks by, I'm going to put an arrow through him. Small game season. Boy, we overlook small game season, don't we? We should. I do. All right, let me rephrase. I overlook small game season, and I shouldn't. Fall fishing, of course. Oh, my goodness, the perch they're getting on Saginaw Bay. Not everybody, but the people who are dialed in and in the know are getting perch. I see pictures of these things. I'm like, Avery, why are you not out there? Why are you not back out on the angler quest, fishing perch for the next couple of weeks, and then switching over to fall walleye? I say every year I'm going to do it, and every year I don't. And to be honest with you, I'll probably pull the angler quest here in the next couple of weeks. I know I am missing tremendous opportunities, but it is what it is. Hey, coming up on this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show, after the break, Jerod Gashe talking about running bears with hounds. Now, he took wild game chef Dixie Dave Minar out this past week. We're going to talk about that hunt and more. Bill Winowicki, the president of the Michigan Charter Boat Association, his charter season is finally over now, so he can weigh in on the consent decree decision. Rich Chrzan of Killer Food Plots, is there something you could do now to tweak those before the season starts, or is that window of opportunity over? In hour number 2, Greg Abbas talking to whitetails. Lieutenant Mark Papineau answering a couple of Ask Avery questions. And then Eric Long of Longline Charters in hour number 3 about fall fishing on Lake St. Clair and more. And we will wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar. My name is Mike Avery. The website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. My email address is Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. I would love to hear from you, and I appreciate you joining us this week right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Alpena on WZTK, that's 105.7 FM. You can hear us in Muskegon on WKBZ, 1090 AM, and you can hear us north of the bridge in Newberry on WNBY, 1450 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Linwood Beach Marina and Campground. Linwood Beach can be your year-round Saginaw Bay fishing destination and your Mid-Michigan tracker and angler quest and polar craft headquarters. You know I love that. They are also the right people to talk to if it's time to put your boat away. Get it winterized, get it checked over at the end of the season, shrink-wrapped, stored. Linwood Beach can help you out. The launch facilities are great. The campground is great. And the people are great. Check them out online at linwoodbeachmarina.com. That's linwoodbeachmarina.com. I'm making myself a note right now. Linwood Beach Marina next week. Get somebody from Linwood Beach on the show next week to talk about this process of putting the boat to bed for the season. Speaking of seasons, I told you the seasons that are going on right now, including the Michigan bear season. I love to bear hunt. You know that. I have no secrets here. I hunt over bait, and I enjoy that tactic. But I have much respect for the people who run hounds for bears as well, including Jerod Gashe. Jerod has been out in the woods this last week with wild game chef Dixie Dave Minar trying to get Dave a bear, and I thought we'd get Jerod on the show to talk more about that and the sport of running hounds for bear. Jerod, welcome to the show. How are you, buddy?
Good. How are you, Mike?
I'm doing good. Listen, I got to tell you, I appreciate... Well, you know this. I reached out to you out of the blue here a couple of weeks ago, said we're looking for somebody to get Dixie Dave out on a bear hunt, and you stepped up, Jerod, and I appreciate that very much.
No problem. It's my pleasure.
So tell me about your experience with houndsmen. How did you get into this? Is this something you've done, do you grow up running hounds?
I did. My dad always had hounds as long as I've been around. He used to coon hunt when I was younger. And then he kind of transitioned into big game hunting, running bear, bobcat, and coyote. So I've been around it my entire life.
So are you running bear, bobcat, and coyote these days?
I still do. Yep.
It seems like so. Listen, looking at it from the outside, to me, it looks like an awful lot of work.
It is. It can be.
Yeah.
I mean, you got year-round maintenance, right? I mean, you got your hounds, that's a never-ending commitment. It's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and time goes into goes into making a good hound, and just, just all of it, really.
And I think people who haven't done it have a hard time, or maybe not a hard time. Some people don't understand what this is all about. They say, "Oh, it's inhumane to run bears with dogs." I look at it like, hey, listen, it's catch and release. You get a chance to really take a good look at the animal before you decide if you want to harvest it, and that's exactly what I hear you guys ran into with Dixie Dave.
Yep. It is. I mean, for me, even when I'm running bear in the summertime, just training my dogs, every bear that I tree, I could count that as a kill, right? I mean, I could have killed that bear. To me, that's just as big of a win as killing a bear. I do it more for the hound work, watching the hounds work. I love training puppies, and watching them develop. That's kind of, a lot of your hound hunters, that people don't see that side of it. And that's where a lot of our hearts are. It's the hound work itself, not necessarily the kill. But yeah, we had trouble finding a big enough bear for Dave, but he did get to see some hound work, and he got to see a small bear, and we opted to pass on that. So.
And you hunt through your Poor Boys Guide Service, and by the way, people can find you on Facebook, Poor Boys Guide Service on Facebook. You hunt. You're not up in the UP. You're not even in the tip of the mitt. You're down in what, Gladwin area?
We run the Red Oak for bear. We run Red Oak and Gladwin, which Red Oak covers the majority of the lower, but we typically hunt like up around Houghton Lake. And north a little farther, up by Higgins Lake, stuff like that, and then the Gladwin unit.
Is it harder to run hounds in that area as opposed to the UP because, you got more people around, you got smaller pieces of land? It would seem to be logistically tougher.
It is, but we don't have to deal with the wolves down here.
Yeah.
So
yep.
That's the added benefit. We used to run the UP a lot. But we had a little incident with wolves in 2018, and I haven't been back to the UP since then.
Jerod, everybody I talk to who runs hounds in the UP for any length of time has a little incident with wolves.
Yep. Yeah, unfortunately, it's going to happen if you're up there enough.
Yeah. So explain to us, what the process of running bears with hounds is. You go out in the morning with dogs on the hood or in the box and looking for scent or tracks, or what?
Both. We also run baits, and we have cameras on baits, so that way we know, we can roughly get a pretty rough estimate on the size of the bears, and then we typically will go out the evening before and drag roads, where we scuff up the roads and, to kind of wipe out all the tracks from that day and make it easier to find tracks the next morning. And then, we hit the road pretty early, typically anywhere between 2 and 4 o'clock in the morning, we're out checking for tracks.
Jeez.
And then, we'll try to get everything checked by daylight. So that way we know what we have to turn loose on, and basically just turn loose on the biggest track that we have and go from there.
You don't get much sleep this time of year, do you?
I kind of need a vacation from my vacation after bear season. No, I run on very little sleep. Between running baits and dragging roads and getting up early, checking for tracks, and it's definitely a labor of love, but it is fun.
So when you turn the dogs out on a track, how many dogs do you let out?
Typically so when we turn dogs loose initially, we consider what we call cold trailing. So they are trailing, the bear's not up and running. Bear don't even know we're after him yet. And typically we'll turn anywhere from, I turn 2 to 3 dogs loose. I try to turn at least 1 or 2 older dogs loose, and then a younger dog that I'm training with them. So typically around, I usually turn 3 dogs loose.
In this training process, then, what role, do you teach the dog, or is it innately in the dog plus the older dogs teach it? Did the dogs teach themselves, basically?
It's a little of both. You try to turn the young dogs loose with the older dogs and hope that they follow and learn, because your older dogs are they only run what you're turning them loose on, right? If young dogs, you can have a tendency of getting on some off game at times. So by turning them loose with the older dogs, they kind of show them, what they're supposed to be doing. And then you just you're kind of working together with your older dog to teach the younger dog.
So does the hunt, if you do get on a bear, does the chase always end with a treed bear?
No, not at all. If you get your dogs in really good shape, the majority of them towards the end of season will start ending in treed bear. But there's a lot of your bigger bears don't tree. They choose, they'll stay on the ground and try to stand the dogs off. And so those ones that, and typically we try to stay away from those bigger bears until kill season. We don't want to get our dogs hurt. We don't want, bad experiences for the young dogs that we're trying to get started. If we can get them a couple months of good, easy running and learning and positive endings, that works out a lot better for them in the long run. So
are you coming up on the end of your season now, Jerod?
I'm done. That was it. When I sent Dave on his way yesterday, I was all done. I was packing up camp and heading home. So,
So when will you start running coyotes? And then bobcats is a wintertime activity. I know that.
Both. I run both in the winter. So I'll run our season for bobcats January and February. And I will run bobcat through those 2 months. And then if we still have snow, in March, even into April sometimes, I'll run coyotes. And then we can run dogs up until April 15th before they shut that down for the quiet season. There's a quiet season from April 16th until July 7th where we can't run hounds. And sometimes in the spring, if it warms up soon enough, the bears come back out and we start running bears again in April. So,
do you have to go way north to run bobcats, or can you do it there in the Gladwin, Baldwin areas?
I can do it right here in the lower, right where I bear hunt. Yep.
And that's got to be a whole different experience than running bears.
It is. You use less dogs bobcat hunting. You can run a lot of dogs on coyotes. Coyote hunting's kind of more similar to a bear race, minus, you're never going to tree a coyote. So
that would be something to see.
I have seen it. I have seen coyotes in trees, not in front of my dogs personally, but I have seen pictures on Facebook and stuff from other guys that have had that happen. So,
well, Jerod, Gashe, it was a real stand-up thing to do to get Dave out there. I appreciate you stepping up and giving it a try. I would send people to your Facebook page, Poor Boys Guide Service on Facebook, Poor Boys Guide Service on Facebook, and maybe you can book a hunt with Jerod this winter for coyotes or bobcats. Thanks, Jeff. Jerod, we'll stay in touch. All right.
Sounds good, Mike.
All right, appreciate it. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. Bill Winowicki of the Michigan Charter Boat Association coming up after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Battle Creek on WBCK 95.3 FM. You can hear us in Tawas on WIOS 1480 AM, 106.9 FM. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Marquette on WDMJ 1320 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by VersaSkins. Just change your skin for the season you're in. Why buy several different sets of hunting clothes, hunting suits, when you can buy one good quality set and snap on and zip on an outer shell of a different camo pattern? It's genius. Good quality clothes, warm, dry, and they come in sizes for big people as well. Check them out online at versaskins.com. That's versaskins.com. I want to turn our attention now to Bill Winowicki, who is the president of the Michigan Charter Boat Association. I, by the way, am a member of the Michigan Charter Boat Association. The website, michigancharterboats.com, michigancharterboats.com. I've been trying to get Bill on for the last several weeks, but he's been busy on the water. I feel like his season might have wrapped up now. Bill, welcome back to the show. How are you?
I'm doing well, Mike, and I have to apologize to you. You have been trying hard to get me on.
Hey, that's all right, man. You got to get out there when you can. Is your season done now, Bill?
Not yet. I mean, I'm still open till the 30th of September. That is when the lake trout season closes in the upper part of the lake.
How was your season this year?
Business-wise, I'm going to do a generalization talking to the captains around. It was similar to what last year was. Fishing-wise, I mean, Manistee South, my God, it was hot down there as far as the silverfish. Frankfurt North, it was tough. I was having a talk with Jay Weston yesterday about the Citizens Advisory Committee meeting. Our lake trout fishery up until the end of June was phenomenal. And then it fizzled, and we're wondering where the young fish are and what's going on out there. So it's a topic of discussion that's going to come up.
Well,
when you take on the east side where you're at, I mean, what can you say? Walleye, bass. I mean, muskie. I mean, it's possible.
Yeah. Well, listen, Bill, you and I could talk for an entire hour about the different topics going on, but we have limited time this morning, so I want to get right to the consent decree decision. As president of the Michigan Charter Boat Association, what are your thoughts?
Very disappointed. For the amount of hours donated in 4 years of this thing, it's the state of Michigan and the DNR really, really let us down. If you want to, people should, who fish the travel seeded water, should go to the Coalition of Tech Michigan Resources and pull up the documents and the maps and take a look at what the 2000 decree was now to, it'll be the 2024, 2023 decree, and the expansion of water that is open to gill net fishing. It's a big disappointment. I'm hoping we as a sports fishery can bond some relationship with the tribes and make this thing work. But there's a lot of loopholes in it as far as law enforcement and reporting, and there's a bill going through the House now, which was the old Charter Boat Act that the Michigan Charter Boat Association assisted the DNR 40 years on charter boat reporting. And basically, I mean, we worked with DNR as far as species, and they wanted to know what catch and release and how many people we have on board, how many hours. I mean, they kept adding stuff to this thing, and we went along with it until we went into electronic reporting because we had some members that were older and weren't as computer savvy. But it's fitted in there where we electronic report every month. Now, with the travel decree, they want to move it up to 2 weeks, which is federal law oversees state law, so we're going to have to go to a 2-week reporting. But basically they gutted the Charter Boat Act, and we don't have an opinion anymore. They can consult us, but they're just going to go do what they want to do anyway.
Well, I think they've proven that. So I find it interesting you say that, the next step may be to reach out to the tribes and try to get some kind of a better relationship there, because it's obvious the system itself has let you down.
Yes, it has. I mean, it let, not me, it let all the sports fishermen in the state of Michigan down. I mean, the coalition is steelheaders, Hammond Bay, Detroit area steelheaders, Pentwater, all the sports fishing organizations in the state of Michigan that fish the Great Lakes. I mean, it's a letdown to all of us.
And it's also, and listen, I'm not a biologist, but looking at it from the outside, it also seems like it puts, in some ways, threatens the resource itself.
Well, we got to go back to what happened with the zebra mussels. I mean, the Great Lakes, especially here on northern Huron, Lake Michigan, are only producing a third of the biomass that they were 20-some years ago before the invasion of zebra mussels. We had whitefish. That's what made the travel trees in the past. I mean, everybody was after the whitefish. Now the whitefish population is crashing. And now all that's left now is the lake trout. And I just told you at the beginning of your show, we're questioning what's going on with lake trout. We can't catch any.
Bill, listen, I got to let you go. I'm so sorry to have to cut you off. I knew it was going to be a short segment, but I'm glad to get you on. Bill Winowicki of the Michigan Charter Boat Association, MichiganCharterBoats.com, MichiganCharterBoats.com. Check it out. There's a lot going on here. Rich Chrzan after the break on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Caro on WKYO 1360 AM and WIDL 92.1 FM. You can hear us in Ludington on News 97.98, 98.7 WLDN. And you can hear us in the Sioux on News Talk 1400 WKNW. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Killer Food Plots. And since it's brought to you by Killer Food Plots, by the way, the website killerfoodplots.com, killerfoodplots.com, rather than have me talk about Killer Food Plots, let's bring in Rich Chrzan, the man behind Killer Food Plots, who joins us once again on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Rich, welcome back. How are you?
I'm good. You, Mike?
Well, I'm good. Have you had a chance to catch your breath, or are you still out there? I mean, I guess my main question is, Rich, have we missed the window of opportunity on food plots? Is there anything we can do at this point, or other than just sit back and watch them grow?
There's always things you can do for planning wise. You could do some lethal winter oats and go into your food plots where the deer overbrowsed them and kind of fill in them dead spots and rough the dirt up if you can and throw it down. And you can get some growth out of that, and they like it because it'll be tender and it'll be new for them. And come later on in the season, they'll hit it really good. We're into a lot of a maintenance thing right now, just mowing your clovers. And I like to go out and spot spray my clovers and my chicory plots, get them grasses out of there that have kind of been hindering me all summer long. So, but yeah, I mean, we're winding down. Gun blinds are going good right now, so that's keeping me busy, busier than I thought. So that's a good thing. So I got some people that are planning for next year already. I just mowed a few acres for a guy yesterday, and we're going to throw down some ag lime. So come spring, he can get his plan going, and we can hopefully get something drilled in there for him, and he can have his food plot. But he threw some oats down earlier, and mowing and running them into the ground will probably really help that out. So there's just that kind of stuff going on. I
don't get the mowing thing. Like, why would you plant a seed, get it to grow, and then come back and then mow it down?
Oh no, he just planted the seed. This gentleman just acquired this property. So what he did is it's kind of a sandy soil, and the weeds are real thin. So what he did is he sprayed the weeds down. Then he planted oats and some rye. And then I came and mowed the dead grasses and what he killed off. I mowed those down to cover the seed because that'll help maintain moisture and help that seed germinate. So,
I got you. Were you able to get your own food plots in, or did like the plumber with the leaky pipes? Did you not get your own stuff done?
I did. I only got about a 3/4 of an acre plot. of my Carnage Braskas. I love those things. I've got some maintenance I do on my clovers, but as we talked in earlier shows, I actually got into my trails this year and established some oats and some deep woods on those trails that I'm just going to be walking on. It's great, keeps the deer in there. They're actually milling on it. They go through and they browse and they stay on my property longer. So I'm pretty happy with that. Last year I didn't get a chance to do it like I wanted to, and it failed miserably, but I kind of knew that going into it. It was one of those very late season haphazard kind of things. So
if you've got, like most Michigan woodlots do, trails that go through them, does it have to be a walking trail only? Or if people run quads or tractors or even trucks down these trails, can you put seed in there, or will the traffic just kill it all off?
It won't kill it all off. So I run these trails mostly in the wintertime, either to retrieve game or mostly for cutting wood. So they won't get a whole lot of traffic from, say, September till probably December. But still, if you're running a truck down that path is 8-10 foot wide, and you're only going to kill off the tire track. You still have that browse in the center. So
hey,
anything for them deer.
Tell me about, before I let you go, you mentioned gun blinds. When did you get into that business?
Actually, we've been into that business for about 3 years. They're really becoming popular. I'm getting a lot of attention for them right now. They're 360 gun blinds. They're on my website, killerfoodplots.com. A very nice blind, very comfortable. I actually got a gentleman picking 2 of them up this morning, and then I'm cleaning a spot in my barn so I can assemble another one. So my off season is not off yet.
I don't know if you ever get an off season.
No, which I'm okay with. I like the camaraderie. I really like this time of season. You get to see the youth hunt bucks that we're taking off from customers' property. That is so rewarding for me. Just to see them smiles, right? The bucks are cool in the picture, but most of the time them smiles on the kid's face is overwhelming. So that's exciting for them.
And a kid, a kid doesn't care. They can sit over a 1.5-year-old spike and have the same smile as if it's a 10-point trophy buck.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And my theory is, what? I don't care what age you are. If that deer excites you, then that's a trophy to you. You take that animal. People can be considerate and not take 2 small ones. But, if that one comes out and it gets your blood pumping, absolutely, that's a deer for you. So.
All right, Rich, listen, always a pleasure. I'll send people to that website, killerfoodplots.com, killerfoodplots.com. You have a good season. We'll talk again.
Thanks, Mike. You too.
All righty, we'll take a break for the top of the hour. When we come back in our second hour of this week's Outdoor Magazine, Greg Abbas of A-Way Outdoors talks about talking to deer. We'll also talk about his outdoor consulting business where he helps people bring products to market, and he's very successful. And then Lieutenant Mark Papineau of the DNR helps us get ready for the season, and he'll answer this week's Ask Avery question. In fact, they're last week's Ask Avery questions that we couldn't get answered. We're going to do it this week in hour number 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Eider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polar Craft Boats, Primal Outdoors, Security Credit Union, Offshore Tackle, Garber Chevrolet, Rapid River Knife Works, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to hour number 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network on more than 30 radio stations across the great state of Michigan. I think at this point, I've done all I can to make it clear that this is first and foremost a radio show. Now, I get it. You really don't care. I know you don't. But I do. This is a radio show. It is recorded, produced, distributed, syndicated, uploaded, downloaded, whatever, as a radio show. And I think the best way to listen, if you can, is on your local AM or FM station. For one thing, the broadcast stations get the content of the show before the podcast is uploaded. But if you can't hear the broadcast version of the show, if your local affiliate doesn't carry all 3 hours, yes, this is a 3-hour show. Or if, God forbid, you live in some part of our state not covered by the broadcast signal, isn't it nice to know there's a podcast version of the show available? And the podcast is exactly the same content, word for word, as the radio show, but it's just made available someplace other than on your local radio station. Well, where can you hear it, Avery? You can hear it on my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. You can hear it on my Facebook page. It's on Amazon Music, Audible, Twitter, now called X, LinkedIn, Apple Music, Google Play, iHeartRadio, SoundCloud, Spotify, TuneIn, Stitcher, Player, the whole gamut, even YouTube. Anywhere you can hear a podcast, you can hear the podcast version of the Outdoor Magazine radio show. I do love podcasting. I think podcasting is a great way to get your message out, a great way to get information out, a great way to tell a story. And I do podcasts every month for some of my advertising partners, including Offshore Tackle, Angler Quest Boats, Primal Outdoors, and Polarcraft Boats. In fact, when we are done here in the studio today recording this week's radio show, we will record this month's Polarcraft podcast. This time around with Sir Lancelot, as I like to call him, Lance Valentine, talking about fall fishing. So keep an ear out for that. I've been doing this a long time. I consider this a blessing. I honestly do. To be able to do something that I love so much at this point in my life is a blessing from God. But I'm able to do it because you have supported me over the years. You've followed me over the years. You listen to the radio show. You listen to the podcast. You watch the old TV show. And I always say that one of the best things about what I've been able to do over all these years is I've had a chance to meet and work with some really good people, some top quality people. Because I'll be honest with you, if they weren't top quality people, I didn't continue to work with them. Greg Abbas is one of the nicest guys I've ever worked with. He's just a great guy. He's a solid guy. He's a straight shooter, and he's very, very knowledgeable, and he has an excellent sense of business savvy. And he's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Greg, welcome back to the show. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing great. How about yourself, Mike?
I am doing, well, hey, listen, it's almost October, so I'm doing good.
That's right. Yeah, starting to get excited.
So what occupies your time these days, Greg? You don't have a TV show anymore, but you're still, I mean, listen, you're not retired yet. At least I don't think so.
No, semi-retired. But, there's two things I do right now. One is the invention consulting for people that have outdoor inventions, hunting, fishing, camping. Obviously, my father and I have spent 35 years in the business, and we made some really good relationships with the companies, so pretty easy for me to run an idea by these companies on behalf of my inventors and try to do it at a very good price for them, because my average everyday guy works paycheck to paycheck, and, just like we did. And I understand it, so I keep it affordable. The other thing I do, you may laugh, it's a hobby turned business, was rock picking, but I ended up buying the saws and starting to make jewelry and put it on Etsy. And, I was happy I was thinking if I sold maybe 25 pieces a year, it'd make my day. I think I've sold over 1,000 pieces, Mike. I really enjoy it, and I'm making Petoskey stones, Uperlite stuff, pudding stone stuff, Leland blues, and I just love it. It's a hobby, and I'm passionate about it, and it gives me something to do with all the rocks I find.
How did you ever get started down that path?
I bought a $7 tile saw at a garage sale. That was the start of it. And I thought, let me buzz up a couple rocks here, cut them in half, see what they look like, maybe slab a couple up and make a jewelry piece for my wife. And then people said, hey, how do I get one of those? And then it just snowballed, and I ended up buying all the equipment that I make the stuff with now. Now everything's, very professional and very elegant looking, and, I make hearts and teardrops and all kinds of shapes.
So do you go out and pick all these stones, or do you buy these things at this point?
Majority of them I go out and pick. Now, the Lelands can be a little tough to find, so those I buy from people that have good access to the Leland blues, but pretty much everything else I go out and find.
So where do you find the Petoskey stones? Are those all on the beach then of Lake Michigan?
Yes. Yep, and a lot of times I go into the water, but the best time to find them really is first ice out, because then you find them on the beach and you find them in the water. During the summer when everybody's vacationing, everyone's walking on the beach, and it's hard to find the bigger and the better quality Petoskey's. So I usually go early spring and later in the fall, and I put on waders and find some good stuff.
So what are these Leland blues? I've never heard that term before.
Oh, boy, quite a nice history. It's the glass slag that was left over from the iron smelting process in the 1800s, and a lot of them were located on Lake Michigan, and there was a nice big company there in Leland. It was the Lake Superior Leland Iron Company, and right there in Leland, Michigan, and their glass slag that they got as a waste product, they'd go out into Lake Michigan and dump it, and now it rolls to shore in the form of you could say rocks, but it's really more of a glass, and it's very sought after. And they are very beautiful, and anybody who sees them wants them.
And you also mentioned Uper lights. Those things are hot right now, aren't they?
Oh, they are. And boy, I was up north a couple of weeks ago, and a big storm rolled through with big waves, and I never done better in my life. I probably found 6 to 9 softball size, and probably 2 that were 5 to 7 pounders on top of that, and then a bunch of smaller ones just did really well. And I make jewelry out of them as well. A lot of people, even though you'd have to flash a UV light on them to show your jewelry, people do that, and it really amazes the crowd.
So these actually glow. If you put a UV light on them, they show up.
Yeah, some UV lights are better than others. A 365 nanometer one is the best. That will show it in the fluorescent orange that everybody seeks. You could do a 395, but it shows it more in pink.
This is so cool, Greg.
Oh, it is. It's fascinating.
You went from turkey hunting guy to TV show producer to invention consultant, and now you're into another area.
I'm still hunting, but it's rocks. I do some animals, too. I still do the deer.
Oh.
I play with the turkeys.
But you're not guiding anymore, right?
No. I'm getting a little too old for that. That was a lot of walking around, and I used to like to really run and gun, and I probably wore most of my clients out with my style, but boy, were we successful.
But yeah, and I think about the people that you taught over the years and who learned from you, and the people who took, who harvested birds with you. There's been an awful lot of people you've touched.
Oh, and a great man, Chet Lohr. I know you've hunted with him too, and
yeah.
God bless him. But what a beautiful person and outstanding guide. And I wouldn't be surprised if that guy's talents exceeds mine by now.
Wow. Well, that's quite a statement.
He's
quite
good.
A statement. And then, we're coming up on a break here in a minute, but one of the things I want to talk about after the break is this whole concept of vocalization with whitetails. How did you guys get going down that path?
Oh, my father. Back in the day, I mean, we were all up in tree stands, and we'd be up there in October, and you'd hear deer grunting, but it wasn't that loud foghorn sound like the grunt calls we're making at the time. It was soft and it was subtle. And my dad noticed the does doing that, and even the bucks, and they were still communicating and still attracting one another. And he says, "You know what? I'm going to try to develop that sound." And he did. He's the one who developed social calling. You never used to hear about calling deer in the early season. It was always during the rut with that big, heavy sound. And he came up with that, and it was very successful.
Well, listen, Greg, after the break, let's talk more about that. Maybe even you can give us some examples of that as well. We're talking with Greg Abbas, of A-Way Outdoors, the website awayhunting.com, awayhunting.com, but you've heard Greg talk about all the other activities he's involved in now. Pretty cool, and he's a very interesting guy. So we'll take a break here on the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, more of our conversation with Greg Abbas. Then later in the hour, Lieutenant Mark Papineau from the DNR, he's a conservation officer, helps us get ready for the upcoming season, stay safe and legal, and he will stick around for another segment and answer this week's Ask Avery segment. These are two questions that came up last week. Recreational passport and can you shoot a feral cat while you're out hunting? That and more coming up in hour 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Sheboygan on Big Country Gold, WCBY, 1240 AM, 100.7 FM. You can hear us in Traverse City on WTCM, 580 AM. And let's go north to Iron Mountain, WMIQ, 1450 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by... You know that sound. That is my Rapid River knife that I just pulled out of my pocket, opening up. It's a great sound, isn't it? That is the sound of a very well-made, quality piece of equipment. Made by craftsmen, handmade by craftsmen in Michigan's Upper Peninsula at the Rapid River Knife Works plant. Now, I would strongly encourage you next time you're in the UP, if you're in the Rapid River area, stop by the showroom. It's on US 2, just east of Rapid River. Very impressive place, beautiful facilities. You can watch them make knives, you can buy a knife, and you can have it engraved while you're there. If you can't make it to the showroom, go to the website rapidriverknifeworks.us, rapidriverknifeworks.us. You can order a knife, you can have it engraved there, you can see the different inventory. These things are guaranteed for life. I need to get up there very soon. I think we want to do a Wednesday night live from the Rapid River plant, and I need to get a new edge put on my knife because I haven't been doing a very good job keeping it sharp myself. RapidRiverKnifeWorks.us is the website, RapidRiverKnifeWorks.us. While you are online, please check out my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. And head on over to awayhunting.com. That's the website of Greg Abbas, A-Way Outdoors. The guy's been in the outdoor industry forever. Greg, at one time, you guys were making calls. You were making turkey calls, and you were making the world-famous Bow Grunter Plus, which I still have in my backpack. I know you guys aren't making those anymore. Are they still on the market, though? Are they available?
Yes, a company called Boss Man Outdoors has them, and it's called the Dual Grunter.
Grunter.
I think they call it the hands-free deer call. They changed the name.
Well, and you guys, you and you and your dad, really changed the way that we as hunters looked at vocalizing with deer. I mean, it's not like turkey hunting, right? It's not that interactive, I don't believe. No, it's not where you're going to have a conversation back and forth like you would with a turkey. A deer is likely to hear it, and if it's interested, that's when it's likely to come in, sneak in on you, or depending on time of year, sometimes come in and run you over. Yeah. But normally they don't talk back and forth. Well, and I find it interesting that you talk about, these real deep resonating grunt tubes that you hear, you see out there. And when I first tried that Bow Grunter, I'm like, well, this doesn't sound anything like that. It's not supposed to sound like that, at least most times, is it?
Oh, no. It sounds like the deer that you're hearing at this time of year. In fact, during even during the rut, I don't hear them big foghorn sounding grunts. It's still a lower pitch, and with the Bow Grunter here, you're able to adjust the tone exactly where you need it. It's got that tube on the end that's corrugated that goes in and out, and you also have settings on the inside, and that sound that you hear, you can perfectly imitate.
Well, let's hear what it sounds like. What does a deer grunt sound like?
Here's was a doe grunt that I would be using early October. Just like that.
And when you say just like that, you mean 3 notes just like that?
Yes. Now, I'll space them out a couple seconds apart, but yes, it would be a 3-note sequence. Even when I don't see any deer, I would do the 3-note sequence and repeat it about every 20 minutes. If I happen to see a deer, I see a buck I want to attract, I'll give 1-note sequence and gradually bring the volume up. I'll start off lower than what I think he can hear because I think hunters tend to call too loud and too much, and a lot of times they scare away their quarry. So I'll start off softer, and most of the time they're going to hear it because they got 7 inches of radar on their head, and they can pick that up pretty good, a lot lower than what you think. And if you're wearing the call on the body, you're pointing the call behind you, so you're making that deer think that the call that he or she is hearing is further on, and that brings them through you, gives you that shot opportunity. When you point a call at a deer, you're making a mistake. You're being too loud, and you're making him think you're closer than you are, and he's not seeing you. Then he could be nervous. So,
if they hear you, how will they respond? Will they grunt back like a turkey would respond back?
Not usually. Occasionally, you might get that when he starts to move. He may give off a grunt, but typically they're just going to sneak in on you. And the reaction you get, they'll always look, and then you're going to see one of a couple things here. They're either onto something else and they keep moving, or they're interested and they take a long approach around you and circle in, or they're very interested and they make a beeline for you.
So you're using this call to locate, to attract, and even sometimes you can use that call to stop a buck in his tracks too, right?
All the time. Absolutely. Almost every hunt.
What about this this deeper grunt? Do you ever use that in Michigan?
No, I don't. I have used it out of state. Where there's a better buck-to-doe ratio, where these bucks have to fight to get a doe. The areas I hunt, does are pretty plentiful, so these bucks are not really having to challenge one another too much to get a doe. So I find that a younger buck setting works better than the big, deep grunt of a dominant buck.
So you call to deer that you don't see every 20 minutes or so. How does that change when you see an animal? Do you call to them then as well?
Yes, singular notes. And they're going to raise their head and look at you, and if they keep going on their way, I'll grunt again, and sometimes I can get him to turn and come in. Other times he'll turn right away and start coming in which case I quit calling. I don't want to make a note that scares him or pinpoints my location exactly. I want to pull him through me. So as long as he's coming in my direction, generally he's going to come, and I just let him. I do no more calling unless I have to.
Well, and you say the same thing about turkey calling in the springtime. If a bird's coming your direction, shut up. Let it happen.
That's right. I know guys are excited, the heart's thumping, and you call them all that distance, and you think if you call a little more, you're going to seal the deal, but you could actually seal your fate.
So is that doe grunt that you gave us a minute ago, is that ever a bad call?
No, never. She's either a mother figure or she's a sex symbol, so always an attractant. Now, when you mess with the buck settings, yeah, you could scare deer away, and that's why I don't like the dominant buck setting. A young buck setting usually will not scare anybody away, and if there is a big dominant buck in the area, he's going to want to come in to beat up this young guy. If there's still a nice-looking younger buck that you want to bring in, he's usually not intimidated either.
Let's hear what that young buck grunt sounds like.
Okay. That's it there.
A little deeper, would you use the same 3-note sequence then too?
Yes, calling sequences are exactly the same. 3 notes when I don't see them, 20 minutes apart, and then singular notes when I do see them.
So what role does scent play? I know you guys were in the scent industry for a while too. Do you use these in conjunction with each other?
Oh, we do, and we still have scents.
You do?
Yes. And, we got some darn good ones. But, yes, because you fooled his eyes into thinking there's a deer there, and when you're able to confirm it with the nose, that's 2 of his senses telling him there's a deer there. The only sense not telling him is the eyes. So 2 out of 3 is a good one to bring him in.
Well, let's talk more about scents then. Which ones do you guys have these days, Greg?
We've got, depending what state you're in, what you can and can't use, but we've got synthetic deer scents, and we have natural deer scents mixed with synthetics as well. And we still love our synthetics. They're very strong. They last for days. They're rejuvenated by water. They don't easily wash away with rain, and they just bring deer after deer. Very good product.
So you're putting them in mock scrapes on licking branches? What?
Definitely, yeah, especially the mock scrapes. We like making our own scrapes in areas that's advantageous to us. So we'll go through and condition them, starting in August, September with the synthetic stuff, and then let them start expanding by themselves. And they'll start taking it over once they start feeling that rutting activity a little bit. And I'm not having to juice it up as much or little, if any. I still do a little bit because I want them to know that the deer they've been smelling is still there. But in all honesty, you could probably let go at that point if they're really, it's turned into a scrape all by itself. But I still like to add a little bit.
Is it too late to start a mock scrape right now?
No, not at all. No, you could do it now. Back in the day, people would say, the scents work, or no, it didn't work. And I asked, well, how'd you use them? Well, I just went over there and dumped some. Well, you just can't do that, Mike. You need to dump it off to the side of a trail, off to the side of a run, like the deer do. Put it underneath, a bush where there's a nice branch that they can lick and rub. And I used to liken it to a kid selling Kool-Aid, a Kool-Aid stand. You wouldn't set up your kid in the back of the house where nobody would see it. You'd set it up in front where all the traffic is, and you got to do the same thing with the deer. You just can't put the product out in the middle of nowhere and think the product failed you. You failed the product when you done that.
Well, Greg, listen, it's always a pleasure to talk with you, and we didn't even get into the invention consulting side of things. So how about if you and I schedule a conversation a few weeks down the road, and we'll talk about that specifically, if you don't mind.
Anytime, my friend.
I appreciate that. Greg Abbas of A-Way Outdoors, the website, awayhunting.com. That's awayhunting.com. One of the nicest guys in the outdoor industry. The guy is driven. He knows how to get things done, and he's a very good hunter as well. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, Lieutenant Mark Papineau from the DNR checking in with us, helps us get ready for the upcoming season. He will stick around to answer this week's Ask Avery question. And then in hour number 3, we're talking fall fishing on Lake St. Clair with Eric Long of Long Line Charters, and, of course, wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar will wrap it all up. Coming up this week right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Flint on Sports Extra 1330 WTRX. You can hear us in Houghton Lake on the Twister 92.1 WTWS. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Escanaba on WCHT 600 AM 95.3 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Boning Archery. Michigan-based Boning Archery, a leader in the archery industry for more than 3/4 of a century. Think about that. The company started when Roland Boning invented Ferrule-Tite to glue broadheads to, at the time, what were aluminum and even wooden arrow shafts. These days, Boning continues to come up with great products, great manufacturing processes. As you are heading into the woods this fall or out to the target range, I suspect you have Boning products on your rig. If not, I would recommend you check them out. The website, boning.com, bohning.com, boning.com. It is the fall hunting season. As you are listening to this show, it is officially fall. It's a great time of year. As you're heading out in the woods this fall, a couple of things to keep in mind. Want you to be safe and want you to be legal. Lieutenant Mark Papineau is a conservation officer with the Michigan DNR. To talk more about that, joins us on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Lieutenant, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing well, sir. Thank you. How are you doing?
It's fall. I'm doing good.
I hear you there.
I think the role of conservation officer is one of the coolest jobs a person can have. How did you get to this point, Lieutenant? What's your career looked like so far?
Yeah, so I hired on the department in 2008, and I came from prior law enforcement. So I did 3 years down in southeast Michigan, just doing what normal cops do. Finally, the time came around where I could transition into what I really wanted to do, which is become a conservation officer, and that's where I'm at. And it's been a very rewarding career, and definitely can't beat my office, especially this time of year.
Well, and it's for somebody who loves the outdoors. I feel like it's a great job, but it is a job, right? I mean, you're out there, you're working in law enforcement, which these days is an interesting career to be in. You're dealing with. I think most of the people you're dealing with are great people, but every once in a while, right? Just like all cops, you're gonna run into somebody who's not the type of person you would prefer to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, you get that in law enforcement for sure, but, the difference, like you said, most of our contacts are people just not doing anything wrong. It's hey, how you doing? What, you seen any deer? How's the hunting going? How's the fishing going? Check a few licenses and move on the way. It's more of that positive experience versus the constant go from call to call of somebody needing something because they were a victim of something. And the other cool part, I mean, our job changes with the season. So now we're getting into our exciting time to get out into the woods and put the boat away and stop beating, having the sun beating down on our head all day. But, it's a rewarding career. It's been exciting, and dealing with the public who's out recreating is just a blast. It's definitely fun, that's for sure.
I've got a few specific questions coming up for you, but in general, as folks head out into the woods this fall, what do you want people to keep in mind?
Yeah, the big thing in early fall is just the safety issue, and being cognizant that our resources right now, our woods, are kind of a multi-use during this early transition time. So you got a lot of different user groups out there. You got guys trying to archery deer hunt and having dogs run around from the bird hunters, and you've got hikers and bikers and off-road vehicles still. People just out trying to enjoy the fall colors. So there's a lot of uses of our public lands right now, and just kind of being cognizant of all of those multiple uses will keep people safe and hopefully kind of deter some of the user conflicts that we kind of get this time of year.
And what conflicts do you see? I mean, recreational trespass is always a problem, but what else you see in this time of year?
Yeah, we get a lot of the conflicts, the hunters out there and trying to dodge ORVers and people trying to sit in a deer blind and hunt, and here comes some nature hiker or a biker or ORVs still, or you're sitting up in a tree stand wearing camouflage and a bird hunter comes walking through and flushes some birds and takes some shots. So it adds some of those conflicts. It's not really necessarily a physical conflict, but it's just that multi-use type of issues that go on.
Gotcha. I see what you're saying. And, you talk about conflicts between different groups. Here in Michigan, it is illegal to harass a legal hunter, isn't it?
It is. Yep.
What would that harass? Yeah. I mean, how do you handle that? You're sitting up in a tree stand, and thank God this doesn't happen very often, but you're sitting up in your tree stand. Somebody comes down a trail, sees you, doesn't think you should be hunting there. They start making all kinds of noise or whatever. What can we as a hunter do?
Yeah, the best thing to do, and obviously you're there to hunt, but in the cell phone age, if you can get a recording of that, we have to be able to prove that that person is intentionally trying to disrupt your hunting and your heritage. So if you could get documentation of that for evidentiary purposes that we can then use, that's really big key. Also, you got to contact our report all poaching hotline or get some sort of 911 or whatnot to get us there as soon as we possibly can. And there's text to rap features now too. There's numbers you can text our 1-800 number if you're sitting there, you see something. But yeah, you don't want to talk on your phone because obviously you're there to hunt. You can fire off texts. It accepts pictures, video. But yeah, definitely get a hold of us, and we'll definitely see what we can do for you.
Perfect. We're talking with Lieutenant Mark Papineau of the DNR, Michigan.gov/DNR. Got to take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. The Ask Avery segment coming up right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Houghton Lake on 98.5 WUPS. You can hear us in Holland on WHTC 1450 AM and WHTC 99.7 FM. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Manistee on WTIQ 1490 AM and 95.3 FM. The Ask Avery segment is brought to you each week by my friends from Security Credit Union. Security Credit Union loves to work with outdoorsmen and women, and they can help you with your next outdoor adventure. Check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. The way this works is this is your chance to send me a question, something you would like me to answer directly, or a question you would like me to pose to somebody else. The best way to get those questions to me, send me an email, Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com, Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. These questions are a holdover from last week. We weren't able to get them answered last week, but this week, Lieutenant Mark Papineau from the DNR is stepping up to answer these questions. So, Lieutenant, here we go. First one is, where is the recreational passport required? Now, the recreational passport, my understanding is that little sticker that we get on our license plate to use things like a state boat launch. Where else do we have to have this? Is it all state land?
Yeah, it's actually not all state land. So the passport's required for motorized vehicles that are entering or parking in any state parking lot or entering a campground, including state forest campgrounds. They're also required state recreation areas, boating access sites, and designated trailheads that are essentially related to the trails and pathways, or like your hiking, your biking trails.
But not all state land, like Gratiot Saginaw Game Area, for example. Would we have to have one at a game area?
You don't traditionally have to, unless there's some other use for that. And when you enter those areas, if it requires it, there should be a sign that'll say rec passport required. But essentially, really, it's just that the state parks, the campgrounds, our recreational areas, and boating access sites are the big key ones that definitely require it.
Okay, gotcha. This was a topic of discussion on a recent Wednesday Night Live. Also on a recent Wednesday Night Live, this question came up. We had a discussion about being out in the woods and seeing a dog run by, running deer by you, or sitting in a tree stand out in the middle of the woods and seeing a cat come by, a cat that didn't have a collar on it, and obviously it was out there hunting. So the question is, can a licensed hunter shoot a dog or a cat that you see in the act of hunting a game bird or a game animal?
Yeah, it's a good question. We get that one quite a bit. The state of Michigan has what's known as the Dog Law of 1919, which actually does a lot of the regulations for licensing and whatnot. But in that law, the only person that can legally kill a dog anybody can essentially, but only if it's harassing livestock, poultry, or people. So it would have to be some sort of a farm operation, or, hey, I got free-range chickens in my backyard, and some stray dog comes up and starts attacking them. Any Michigan resident can actually shoot or kill a dog that's in the act of doing that. The other question part of that, if it's molesting or harassing wildlife like deer, only law enforcement under that law has the ability to legally dispatch that animal. So just the average hunter sitting in his tree stand that witnesses that, they wouldn't legally be able to do it. Now, cats are a little different. There's no cat law. like there is the dogs, but it would possibly fall under the animal cruelty statute, and that could also apply to dogs as well. So a person could be charged if they kill without, and the law says, without just cause. So we'd have to figure out, they would have to justify what that reasoning was specifically for shooting that dog or a cat. And that's ultimately up to a local prosecutor. So just the mere presence of that dog or that cat wandering through by your hunting blind, if that's all they're doing, the prosecutor would have to justify whether that fell under the animal cruelty statute or that was just a justifiable reason to dispatch it.
Personally, I don't think that's a path I want to go down, because if you got a local prosecutor who's, and this is me saying this, not you, Lieutenant, if you got a local prosecutor who's looking to make a name for himself, what better way to do that than to get the animal cruelty stuff involved? That always hits the headlines.
Yeah, it does, and we've had it pop up every now and again. It's not a common thing where prosecutors go that route. There's usually some other options that they may or may not want to take. But that is definitely an option, and unfortunately, that one is a 4-year felony, and it just leaves a lot of opportunity there for a local prosecutor. So I understand the hunter's commitment to protecting the wild game and whatnot, but if they're going to take that avenue, we want to make sure that that's just definitely a justifiable case that we can also protect them on the flip side too.
Lieutenant Mark Papineau, listen, I appreciate your time. I do these Ask Avery segments every week, and a lot of these questions ends up being DNR law enforcement related. Can I reach out to you in the future? Can you be a resource for us here on the show in the future?
You sure can. Anytime.
All right. I appreciate that, Lieutenant. We will stay in touch. Lieutenant Mark Papineau from the DNR, michigan.gov/DNR, michigan.gov/DNR. And, of course, a big thanks to our friends at Security Credit Union for making each week's Ask Avery segment possible. Check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. We will take a break for the top of the hour. When we come back, Eric Long, Captain Eric Long of Longline Charters on Lake St. Clair, talking about the tremendous fall fishing going on there. And we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar. I need to hear more about his bear hunt and maybe a recipe, maybe not. Coming up in hour 3 of Outdoor Magazine.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Eider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polar Craft Boats, Primal Outdoors, Security Credit Union, Offshore Tackle, Garber Chevrolet, Rapid River Knife Works, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
40 years? I must have started this when I was 5 years old. Well, no, that wasn't the case. Hey, anyway, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to hour number 3 of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show. I don't think there's another outdoor radio show in Michigan that's 3 hours long. If there is, I apologize. But this show is 3 hours long. I am here every week for 3 hours at this microphone in this studio talking about this outdoor lifestyle that we all love so much. Hunting and fishing and shooting and trapping and wildlife issues and conservation issues, even some wild game cooking. By the way, wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave coming up at the end of the hour. And this is a wonderful state to do this. And I've had this discussion many times with people that if I would have been born in another state, and obviously I didn't have any say or control over this, had I been born in another state, I probably, maybe some other states, Texas, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, yeah, maybe. But the vast majority of other states, I probably would not have been able to pursue this career as I have. But the fact that I was blessed to be born in Michigan with so many outdoor recreational opportunities, so many people who love this outdoor lifestyle, such a strong sense of tradition when it comes to hunting and fishing. It allowed me to do this for a living over so many years, and I am so very, very grateful for that. As you are hearing this show, it is now officially fall, and I hope you are getting a chance to get out and take advantage of this. For a lot of people, that involves hunting-related activities, but don't forget about the great fall fishing. Fall is a wonderful time to be on the water. It is a great time of year to target trophy fish. And if you're going to be targeting trophy fish, one of the best places in the state, in my opinion, is on Lake St. Clair. And Eric Long of Long Line Charters is one of the guys who is out there this time of year taking advantage of that. Cap, welcome back to the show. How are you?
Good morning, Mike. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Tell me about what you've been up to lately. I've seen some pictures, I've seen some video, and it looks like you guys are having fun.
Yeah, for sure. We had a real busy spring, busy summer. We just got back from Ludington, spent a week over there salmon fishing, and we're kind of falling into that fall pattern now. We're starting to perch fish. We're doing our a trophy muskie trips and some walleye fishing.
I'm trying to think who. Oh, it was John Bergsma I was talking with. Who said you guys were over there fishing kings together.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we filmed a little show together, and I was over there for a week, just plugging away. It was fun. It's a good time.
How'd you guys do on the kings?
The kings were good. I mean, it wasn't on fire, but we were getting 8 to 10 a trip on average, and a lot of cohos mixed in. So some trips we were getting 6, 7, 8 cohos and only a couple kings, but overall it was pretty good.
Hey, listen, I'd take an 8-fish day any day when you're over there after the silverfish.
I'm not complaining one bit.
So what was that experience like, compared to trolling for muskies back on your beloved Lake St. Clair?
When I go to Lake Michigan, it's actually quite easy compared to Lake St. Clair. It's just weird. You almost get bored because you don't have to reel baits in with weeds all day. You put baits out, and then they catch a fish, and you reel them in. At Lake St. Clair, you're a lot busier on Lake St. Clair. There's a lot of weeds, a lot of floating weeds, and a lot of weed growth, so it keeps you busy.
Do you ever have a season on Lake St. Clair when you're not fighting weeds? Like, we get into the fall now. Is it less of a concern now?
Oh, no, this is the worst time of year.
Really?
So late September all the way through October is typically the worst. So I was out yesterday perch fishing, and I'm not even sure if I could have trolled if I wanted to. There was so many weeds floating around, it's going to be a chore. So yeah, we're just getting into that time where the weed growth is starting to die, and they're starting to float around. So it's becoming a lot of work.
And it is, and it's a pain. But you spend a lot of time out there. From your professional tips, Cap, is there anything we can do to help fight those weeds, or is it just muscle through it and keep picking away at them?
You gotta work hard. I mean, generally, you can try to avoid some of the floating weeds, but some of the best fishing is really where the weeds are at. So that stained water and the floating weeds kind of go hand in hand sometimes, it seems like. But you can generally pick an area and troll along where the weed line is. You can find open, clear water, but it's not necessarily the best fishing. So you gotta weigh it a little bit. Do you want to try to catch more fish, or do you want to bail less weeds? So it's kind of however you feel.
You want to catch fish, you got to go in the weeds.
Correct. Usually that's the case.
So you said you were perch fishing yesterday. You're probably just getting started on that season. How was that day?
It was our first perch trip of the year. I don't know if it was a fun trip. I brought my cousin and my buddy Paul. We went out there and just kind of bounced around and see if we could find some perch near the marina. We ended up running down towards the southern end of the lake, and I think we pulled lines around 11, started at 7, finished around 11, and we got 75. So we got our limit, but it wasn't on fire yet. They're still spread out, and a lot of 8 to 10s in the mix, and I think we had a couple 12, 13s, but nothing big. I would say give it a few weeks. Usually mid-October is when we start our perch. For full-time perch, usually October 15th, November 15th is perch season for us. But it's getting there. The water temp was still 69 to 71. So the water temp's still warm on the surface.
Man, though, that day you just described, those 75 fish, a lot of 8 to 10s, a couple of 12s in there. I tell you what, I think most perch fishermen in Michigan would be more than happy with a day like that.
Yeah, I'm not saying it was a bad day. I just don't know if I can do it consistently yet. I would give a few weeks and get that water temps down a little bit, and I think it'll be a little bit better. But honestly, no, it's an excellent day. I would have been happy with that any day. So, I mean, if that continues, I would definitely be happy with it. And the guys been getting them all summer, but it's like a here today, gone tomorrow thing. So they'll get a limit one day, and then they get 15 the next in the same area. So they're just kind of moving around.
So what is the secret? I can never find perch on Saginaw Bay, and when I find them, I can't seem to catch them, which is stupid because it's got to be the easiest fish to catch there is. What's the trick to catch consistently finding and catching perch?
Well, we got to move around. So this time of year, I'm fishing mud flats adjacent to weed beds, and then in about 2-3 weeks, I'm fishing shallow weed mats adjacent to like sandy bottom or rocks near my. So like they just kind of move in tighter. So right now they're along the channel or in that deeper water adjacent to the weed beds, and you're just kind of like picking that area around. And don't spend a lot of time in one area. If you're not getting them, just keep moving. And it's just and they're different this time of year. Like all the fish I cleaned yesterday, 90% of them had crayfish in their belly. So they're still like in that summer pattern. They're not even eating minnows really. They were all full of crayfish. It was pretty wild.
So are you concentrating on areas that consistently year after year hold fish this time of year?
Yeah. So the lake, there's the dumping grounds and a couple areas adjacent. Sorry, I have technical difficulties over here.
I know what just happened there. You either switched into or out of Bluetooth in your truck, didn't you?
Yep.
Yeah, we caught you.
In and out. So I think we're back connected. So I think we're good to go.
We're good.
But yeah, so during the summer, they're usually along the channel near some kind of weed bed. Or if you want to go deep into Canada, Bell River Hump's always a good place to go. But that's a little bit further of a drive. But during the summer, deep weed beds adjacent to the channel and that cooler water. And then as the temperatures cool overall in the lake, they usually like the mile roads, all along the mile roads from Metro Beach all the way down to the Detroit River, you can generally fish like that 12 to 14 feet of water, and you can find active fish once the weeds die. So once you get the main lake weeds to die, and the fish will push in shallow, and they're just there every year.
Standard perch rigs? Nothing fancy?
Yeah, standard perch rig. Red bead, green bead, and then I like to use them with no beads. So, like yesterday, I was getting more fish on perch spreader rigs with no bead. And I'll use like a snelled hook, and I'll put it right on the weight so it's laying on the bottom. And the fish weren't really aggressive yesterday, so most of my fish came off that bottom hook. That was just basically the minnows laying on the bottom next to the weight. So they see that weight moving. I don't know if it creates a disturbance, but it brings them in, and they're picking up the fish that's on the bottom that's not even swimming.
Wow. Well, yeah, that tells you what you're dealing with right there, doesn't it?
Yeah. There's a lot of weeds. So we probably moved 10 times yesterday before we could find a spot that we're catching them consistently, and we just stayed there and grounded out.
Well, you earned those fish yesterday. That's
yeah.
Put your time in.
Yeah, it would have been a tough one because honestly, we didn't. We started at 7. I think we had maybe 6 keepers by 9, and then by like 11:30 we had our 75. So. We were sweating it out for a little bit, but, overall, a couple moves paid off, and then we got them in the end.
Hang tight, Eric. We got to take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show. We're talking with Captain Eric Long of Longline Charters. His website, chartergreatlakes.com. That's chartergreatlakes.com. When we come back after the break, maybe a little more perch action, but probably some fall muskie fishing tips and maybe some fall walleye as well. And, of course, we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar coming up in hour 3 of this week's Outdoor Magazine. can hear the Outdoor Magazine show on more than 30 stations across the great state of Michigan, including WILS in Lansing, 1320 AM, WMLQ in Manistee, 97.7 FM, and WPHM in Port Huron, 1380 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Reader Landscaping. Reader can take care of your lawn and property because it's your nature and our nurture. Let Reader create an outdoor getaway in your backyard. Let them maintain your lawn and property. Let them spruce up your lawn and property. Let them clean up your lawn and property. I'm talking fall cleanup right now. You're going to need your sprinkler system taken care of here pretty soon. We're going to put that to bed for the season. Reader can take care of that. They can come in and trim your trees, mow your grass, clean up your lawn. And if we're looking down the road to that next season that starts with W and creates cold white stuff that falls from the sky, they can help you with that as well. Check them out online at readerlandscaping.com. That's readerlandscaping.com. While we are waiting for that season, we are now officially into the fall season. In my opinion, the absolute very best time of year. Temperatures are down. Humidity's down. The hunting seasons are open and some of the best fishing of the year. If you want to experience great fall fishing, one place you can go, Lake St. Clair. That's where Captain Eric Long of Longline Charters spends most of his time. His website, by the way, chartergreatlakes.com, chartergreatlakes.com. Eric, would you say that in the fall, most of your clients, are they coming in for that perch fishing? Are they coming in for fall bass fishing, fall walleye, or are they after the big muskies?
I think we get a good mix. I don't honestly do a ton of fall bass anymore. Mostly bass is in June and the May time, but we do a lot of walleye. We recently started doing a little bit more walleye jigging in the fall. Used to just kind of do that for fun, but now we're running some of those trips. But mostly we're doing a lot of perch. We went to a lot of perch heavy the last few years because honestly the perch fishing got really good, and it's just tough to fish the lake in late October, November just because of the weeds. So we'll do muskie trolling and then perch fishing, and then sometime in November, usually about like the mid-November or first week of November, we start walleye fishing. We start walleye trolling and we start walleye jigging.
That late in November?
Oh, yeah. That lake, you can pretty much get out all the way, definitely till usually the end of January, usually. Wow. I would say, like, we're generally, when it's too cold to fish at that point, but the ramps are usually open, and I would say we've been fishing at least into the first week of December every year.
How you don't leave the big boat in that late then, do you?
No, I pull the big boat usually the first or second week of November. And my brother, and I used to put my boat back in, my 23-foot, but now my brother's 24-foot bay boat's in the same marina in St. Clair Shores with me. So now we just run our jigging and trolling trips on that boat. So it just saves me a little bit of effort, so it makes it nice. How is the fall trolling for muskie different than that summer fishery that's so popular? You're not really getting numbers per se, but you're getting the big ones. So the biggest fish you're going to catch are generally going to be that last week of November, the first week of December. But that fall fishery, they're putting on a big feed bag. And a lot of the bigger fish that you're not catching during the summer, they seem to be moving towards like river mouths and known spawning areas. So it's a little bit easier to target that trophy size fish, those 50-inch plus. And it's just a little bit different. So it's more like the diehard guys. You go out there and you just want a big fish. Well, and you say you're not as likely to catch those big trophy fish earlier in the year. Is that because those fish aren't really feeding hard at that point, or they're just not there? Are they somewhere else? Are they somewhere out in deeper, colder water? I guess not with a muskie. That wouldn't be the case, would it? Yeah, we start fishing them in July, but the season opens the first Saturday in June on the Canadian side, and we don't really target them in June too much. We're too busy walleye fishing, but those fish are coming off spawn. And it just seems like we're not catching as big as fish. They're all beat up. They're wore out after spawning, in June. And then July, we start getting into some of the more numbers. a lot of those mid 40s, and then the occasional 50s mixed in. But the fall fishery just seems like the fish are just bigger. For whatever reason, the big fish bite.
50-inch fish, man, that's bigger than most anglers will ever catch in their life.
Yeah, it's fun. We just got a 52 in a change the other day. That was a big one. We caught that on a muskie trip. But we do a lot of different stuff. So we're pretty versatile where we're doing the multi and the muskie fishing. But some of the muskie guys that do it only muskie all summer, they're getting 40, 50 fish over 50 every season.
Wow. When you're out there jigging for walleye or with a perch rig on the bottom, do you ever get muskies come in and hit those?
We do. We generally don't land a muskies, but you get a lot of bycatch. You'll get like catfish, the occasional walleye. Mostly it's smallmouth and perch. Those are our two majors. You'd think you would catch more walleye doing it, but it's actually, we don't catch too many wild perch fishing.
Well, Lake St. Clair is indeed a fish factory, and you kind of have carved out this niche now as being a multi-species a charter, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's always been like, it was funny because the multi-species used to be like when we go do for fun, like, oh, we're going to go to this because it's active. And, like it becomes more of like a charter now because like everybody wants to do that. Like it was like mostly like people would go out there and we take out the families and stuff like that. But now we just do it all summer. And we started doing it like during COVID because it was just like we couldn't go to Canada. And a lot of that multi-species fishing we can do in U.S. waters. And now it's just kind of like our thing in the summer. We do a lot of them.
And it's easy now to get back into Canadian water, right?
Yeah, you just got to have your documents on you. So there's a travel document and, your fishing license, and you're good to go. It's like it was pre-COVID and, well, really even pre-COVID where you didn't have to call in. So we don't call in no more. You just got to have everything on you in case you get stopped.
I want to talk more about this fall walleye fishing because at heart I'm a walleye guy. I love walleye fishing. I spend all summer trolling, but there's nothing like having that rod in your hand when a fish hits when you're jigging. Tell me about your trips that way.
It's kind of our thing. Like April, May, we do a ton of walleye jigging. We run 3 boats and we're really busy. The fall is the same deal. It's kind of like that early April jigging where having live bait, tipping with a minnow, and just your spring areas all will generally produce. So wherever you fish like late March, early April is kind of where you want to go in the fall. Those fish are doing the same patterns and, it's not like a May pattern where you're getting them everywhere. Like you want to fish the same areas you do in the spring. So exception of like the deep water is still going to hold fish. So your deep water summer patterns hold fish, but generally your best fishing is like your river mouths and those breaks along the beginning of the river. So like we fish a lot of the times right in Lake St. Clair where Detroit River meets. That's pretty much where we're fishing, and then all the way down the Belle Isle Bridge.
And so what do you have there? 15-inch 5 fish limit?
Yeah, it's 15 on the U.S. side. It's there's no size limit on the Canadian side. We're still typically fishing the Canadian side of the river just because the U.S. side of the river is typically too clean to jig effectively. So it's still, you can pull the bottom bouncers, you can still jig, but the stained water is still going to be on the Canadian side typically just because of prevailing winds and river mouth and just how the lake sets up. So we're still really on the Canadian side, which it doesn't have a size limit, but we're not keeping like little fish. And the fish in the fall are generally, they're going to be like 18 to 22, 24-inch fish. They seem like they're a little bit better class of fish in the fall than we get like in that early spring run sometimes.
I think of the Detroit River and Lake Erie as true trophy walleye fisheries. Lake St. Clair more of a numbers over a size type fishery?
Yeah, as far as the lake goes, I think I've only caught one fish over 30 inches in the lake itself out there. But there's a lot of that 24 to 28 inch fish and a lot of 18 to 22s. So a lot of those like really on the bigger end of the eater size are out there. And in the fall, I'm not sure what brings the different male versus female, but we almost catch, I would say it's like 70% females while we're jigging. So like these like 18 to 24 inch females are really prevalent in the fall fishery.
So on your jigging trips then, are you using spot lock to hold in place, or are you drifting along with the current and the wind, or what?
Oh, no, we drift. So like, you control the boat to go the speed of the current as you go down the river.
Oh, so you're in the river. Okay. You're not out in the lake.
So,
okay.
Yeah, we don't jig in the lake. So we might cast body baits and do a few things along the river mouth, but as far as our jigging trips, we're in the river. So we're going to do the same presentation as the spring. And, you're going to go down with the current. And you want your bait to go the speed of the current and look like natural going down the river.
Gotcha. Do you do any sturgeon trips at all, Eric?
I don't. I got a couple buddies I refer him to. There's a couple good guys. Connor Barr, Dreamcatcher, he does a lot of sturgeon trips. He's a real good guy to go with.
I don't know. There's nothing you can't catch in that home lake, your home lake of Lake St. Clair.
I mean, you could. That's why I stay there a whole year. I used to go to Saginaw Bay and go to Lake Erie a little bit, but now I just keep the boat there and I hang out there all summer. And then my little getaways to Ludington in August for a little bit, and then I'm back on Lake St. Clair. It's a special place, and I can tell you over the last 5 to 10 years, the walleye fishing on the lake is on par with Saginaw Bay or Lake Erie. There's no reason to go anywhere else.
Man, we've got some great fishing in this state, don't we?
It's pretty incredible. Yeah, it's getting ready to kick off. So like that, September's always a little bit of a slower time statewide for fisheries. Like a lot of guys are getting into the hunting season, and it's just a little bit tougher fishing. It's like transition time. But like in a few weeks, it's going to get really good and really good. And
you're going to be fishing up until, what'd you say, November, mid-November?
I pulled a big boat right around like November 15th. But we're going to keep the center console in there as long as we can. So generally that stays in there till like the first or second week of December.
So if people go to your website, chartergreatlakes.com. That's chartergreatlakes.com. They can book a trip with you right online, Eric?
They'll have our contact info. The best way is to get the contact info. Either email us or call the number on there.
Sounds good. Good fishing to you. Always a pleasure talking to you, and I'll look forward to talking again soon.
Thanks, sir.
All right, thank you, Eric Long of Longline Charters, Captain Eric Long of Longline Charters down on Lake St. Clair. The website, chartergreatlakes.com. That's chartergreatlakes.com. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, a few more things to talk about, to mention, to pontificate on, and then we'll come back and wrap it all up with what it sounds like pontificate. First it was Elsa, now it's pontificate. All ends of the spectrum this week, Charlie. And then, of course, we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar. That's coming up yet this week right here on Outdoor Magazine. So I'm sitting there looking at my phone, kind of daydreaming a little bit, thinking about getting out and doing a little hunt, maybe finally doing some fall fishing. And Charlie goes, "Oh, you're on." Okay, I am. My name is Mike Avery. This is the Outdoor Magazine Show. I'm here every week for 3 hours talking about the great outdoors, the history and tradition of hunting and fishing and shooting and trapping. And you can hear the show on more than 30 stations across the great state of Michigan, including WMIC in Sandusky. That's 660 AM and 95.3 FM. You can hear us in St. Joe on WSJM 94.9 FM. And you can hear us in Saginaw on News Radio 790, WSGW, and 100.5 FM, WSGW as well. I am in the studios of WSGW right now. And for this 3 hours, I call it the Outdoor Magazine Studio. I'm in here with Charlie Rood. Charlie, kind of a fixture in the... a fixture in the broadcasting world in the Saginaw area. And it is a nice day, so people are outside going, "Charlie, Charlie, Charlie." Thank you, Charlie. Appreciate your partnership and your friendship here in the studio. So by the time you're hearing this radio show, it is officially fall. Isn't that wonderful? Isn't it nice to be officially in this fall season? I was out the other day putting some new batteries in trail cameras and hanging a couple of new trail cameras, and it was just nice to be out there. It was The only remnant still of the summertime season was the mosquitoes. They were terrible, and I didn't think to take a thermocell out there with me. But it was just nice to get out there. The leaves were starting to turn. There were some leaves on the ground. It was just an absolutely beautiful day, and it made me just realize how much I love this fall season. I mean, bow season just around the corner. Bear season's going on now. Goose season, small game, fall turkey, some great fall fishing. Eric Long of Longline Charter was talking about perch fishing on Lake St. Clair. Saginaw Bay, my buddies have been getting some nice perch. I haven't been out. Why? I don't know. I say this every year, that I'm going to keep the angler quest in the water, and I'm going to get out and do some fall fishing. Whether it's for perch or fall walleye, I mean, perch is hit and miss for me. I can never seem to find perch, and I can't seem to catch them, which is crazy because perch are probably the easiest fish to catch in the world. They give me fits. But I always hear these stories about this fantastic fall walleye fishing, and every year I say I'm going to keep the boat in the water, and I'm going to chase those things in the fall, and I never do. And you know what? I probably won't this year either. So maybe rather than just kid myself and lie to myself, and, you know, I think maybe in the next couple of weeks I'll just go pull the angler quest. I know it's crazy, it's stupid to do that because I'm missing some great fall fishing. But here's the thing. Even if I pull my boat, I got buddies who keep their boats out there real late in the year. And they just happen to be angler quests too, so kind of the best of both worlds. So if I really get jonesing to get out there, if I really want to get out there after some big fall walleye, I know the people who can get me out there, that's for sure. What else? Oh, I need to, as a way of getting ready for the bow season, which is now, as you're hearing this show, just over a week away. Crazy, isn't it? I do need to get my new crossbow back out. I bought a 10-point crossbow in the springtime. I bought it for the springtime turkey season and for the springtime bear season. And I actually shot that thing so much in the last 5 months that I had to get my string and cables replaced. Isn't that crazy? In 5 months, I got to get them replaced. Now, I do, obviously, I think apparently shoot that more than most people who shoot crossbows do, but just a word of advice, and I talked about this last week, if you've got one of these new high energy crossbows, keep an eye on those things. You know, keep the strings whacked, keep the cables, lubricated up, and if it looks like it needs some work, take it into somebody who can do it, because you don't want a bow like that coming apart when you're out in the stand. I mean, that's a lot of energy 2 feet in front of your face to be blowing up, right? So you don't want to do that. So anyway, I had the thing all dialed in. I was good to go, and then I got the cables and the string replaced, and the guys at Jay said, what you want to do is you're going to want to sight that thing back in. I said, am I going to be that far off? They said, probably not. But why would I want to take a chance, right? Plus, it's fun to shoot. I like shooting it. So I need to get that back out, and I need to just check, make it's dialed in. And then I'll be good to go as well. So we've got some trail cameras, some new trail cameras out on the lease property. I love these wireless trail cameras. I mean, the food plots are looking pretty good. See, now I'm starting, right? I talk food plots, I talk trail cameras. It makes you think I'm a real deer hunter, right? Well, I'm not. I'm really not. I deer hunt because it's something to do, and it's something you should do in Michigan. I deer hunt because my granddad deer hunted, my dad deer hunted, my son deer hunts, and my grandkids deer hunt, and I want to be a part of that. Beyond that, I'm not that interested. I do like venison. Maybe not as much as I like bear meat. That's my real passion. When it comes to big game hunting, bear hunting is what I truly love. But that's neither here nor there. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Mag. Well, it is, because it leads us into the next segment with wild game chef Dixie Dave Minar, who recently wrapped up his bear hunt. We'll find out about that after the break here on Outdoor Magazine. Welcome back to Outdoor Magazine. So glad to have you along with us, and so glad to be able to wrap up this week's show, as we almost always do, with my good friend and just an all-around nice guy, wild game chef extraordinaire, Dixie Dave Minar, who just wrapped up a bear hunt. And Dave, we had Jerod Gashe of Poor Boy Guide Service on in the first hour. I have not met Jerod before, but I sure enjoyed my conversation with him. Seems like a real nice guy.
Man, Mike, I had a ball. I sat next to the guy in the truck and in the woods for 4 days, and I learned a lot about him, and I think he's an incredible human being. He's probably the most knowledgeable woodsman I've ever met in my life.
So tell me about your hunt. Now, you did not harvest a bear, but it sounds like you still had a lot of fun anyway.
Oh, I had a ball. I made up my mind I wasn't going to shoot a bear smaller than my dog, and my dog weighs 160 pounds. We could have pursued a bear we pursued it for probably 2 hours, and then we caught it coming across the road, and it was a small bear. There was 2 bears hitting the bait at one was at 11 o'clock at night, and the other was like 4 in the morning. And the dogs, when they sorted out the tracks, they picked the small bear, unfortunately.
Had you ever hunted with hounds for bears before?
No, just wild boar.
Oh, you had for boar. So
in Florida.
So, well, that's a whole different deal. What was the experience like, Dave?
Man, I learned a lot about dogs. I learned a lot. He took me from being a novice, not knowing pretty much anything about how they did this. You know, they have a bait we hunted up in the Gladwin area off of Mosquito Trail and Sterling Truck Trail. And they got some pretty big sections of road up there, and it's more like a fire lane. And so what they do is in the morning, about 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, they drag the roads and fluff it all up real good. And so if a bear walks on it, you can see the tracks real good. Then if you figure out if it's a big enough bear to trail, then you take the hounds and you release one hound, and he sorts out the track and starts baying. And then they might let more hounds loose. Twice we let a pack of hounds loose, and it was just incredible to listen to these dogs in the woods. You know, you could pinpoint right where they were, basically.
And they've got collars on them too, I think, don't they? So you can tell from
radio collars, and he's got screens in the truck, and he can tell you, one dog was 140 yards away, and the other one was 200 yards, and the other one was 300, and they're trying to sort out the track. The one dog put on 15 miles trailing that little bear.
You know, I forgot to ask Jerod, what kind of dogs is he running?
I think he said they were blue chicks.
Okay.
Man, them dogs are just in shape and ready to hunt. The second you take them out of the dog box, it was an amazing thing. I love dogs, and it was just an amazing thing to watch these critters, how they performed.
So did you guys actually tree that small bear, or you saw it crossing the road? That's when you decided.
We saw it crossing the road in front of us.
Okay.
And we realized it was the small bear. We had a 50-50 chance of taking one bear that might have been 250 pounds plus, or another one that was 120 pounds. And so the dogs picked up and tracked for hours, actually, the little bear, and it kept doubling around. And it's just like, you know, when you're fishing on your GPS, you can see right where the dogs went and all of the times that they made errors and had to go back and track it again. So, and then, like I said, the dog put 15 miles on.
It's crazy. So, man, they must eat pretty well at the end of the day. So, is your season over? Are you done hunting now?
Yeah, for hound season, yes, it is.
Okay.
Boy, but it was one of the most enjoyable experiences I've ever had in the woods with another person.
That's saying a lot, because you've been hunting, you've been out there a long time, Dave. So to hear you say that's pretty cool.
It was. I feel blessed to go with this gentleman. Thank you for hooking me up with him.
Well, I don't know Jerod. I've talked with him, obviously, but I've never met him face to face. But when I first contacted him and said, we want to get Dixie Dave out hound hunting, he was like, yeah, I'm all over it. And it was pretty cool because you're going to make us both old here. But he grew up watching you on TV on my show.
That's what he said. The guy's 39 years old, and he said that. Then I started figuring it out. I could be just about his grandpa,
I hear that all the time. I grew up watching you, and I'm looking at the guy, and he's 40 years old with gray hair in his beard. I grew up watching you as a kid. Well, I'm glad you had a good time. I mean, the getting a bear would have just been a bonus because it sounds like you had just a riot as it was.
I did. I had 4 days of pure heaven.
Oh, wonderful. Well, I'm glad you got to do that. We're obviously not going to do a recipe. How about something you got? What are you going to do for us next week? Let's look ahead.
How about a partridge recipe?
Oh, sounds good. All right,
There's
David.
a lot of pad hunters out there, too.
Was there?
Yeah.
All right. Well, we can talk more about that. We'll look forward to that recipe. Thanks, David. We'll talk to you next time.
All right. Thank you, Michael.
Wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar, a big part of the Outdoor Magazine show, as are you. I'm so glad he had a great hunt. I knew he would. Didn't know if he was going to see. This points out, hunting with hounds is not a guarantee. It's still hunting, right? Everything has to go just the way you want it in order to make a harvest. And the harvest is a bonus. The harvest is not what hunting is all about. It's the experience that is the experience. My name is Mike Avery. My website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. You can send me an email to Mike@MikeAveryOutdoors.com. And I will talk with you next week right here on Outdoor Magazine.